Hi, everybody. This is Kim Fuller, and I'm here with Alexa Gorman, one of the authors from the first Born to Rise book project, and just one of my favorite ladies. I love her so much. She's now helping me with my own business as a consultant and assistant, and I'm just excited to have you here today, Alexa. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing so well, Kim. So well.
Well, just interviewing the authors so that we can let some of the new authors kind of get a feel for what this book project is really about. Because as you know, my goal in this was not to just invite someone and say, hey, write a chapter, let's get it edited and published. We wanted to really make the book feel alive. So I'm curious, what drew you to the project originally? And it can be as specific as you knew the publisher, but what was it that really drew you to writing your own story?
I think for me, in addition to knowing and working with World Changers and meeting you through the early stages of the concept, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to put my stories out there. And for me, a big piece of choosing Born to Rise to share the story that I shared was because I feel like it gave me the space and the capacity to share a story with the intention of inspiring other people and to show them what the authentic journey looks like, what rising looks like, and the fact that rising doesn't look the same for every person, just like the journey doesn't look the same for every person. So I was really excited to share my story, knowing that the ending that maybe somebody would assume is the rising what isn't what it looked like for me.
Yeah, you were kind of in the almost like in the middle. You realized you weren't at this end point in your rising. You were like,
Mhm.
there's more, right? And
Exactly.
what you said about, I really wanted to share my story. What does that mean for you? What do you think these stories have the capacity to do when you say my, like you kind of got it.
Yeah. I think when we reclaim a piece of ourselves, when we tell stories in our own voice, it takes a situation or an event. It really is, it's kind of that reclaiming energy of, this is what happened and this is how I chose to work through it. And by telling the story, we're almost like giving ourselves the power to write that history for us and for people who might be going through something similar.
Yeah.
So it's kind of twofold in that it gave me the opportunity to revisit a really painful and transformative time in my life with the hindsight of what it did for me and what it could do for other people. Because telling the story and telling these pieces of the story and telling pieces of my journey since then, there's a deeper level of connection with people and there's a deeper level of understanding when you can really own a piece of your life that in the moment may have felt difficult or pointless, or like, why am I here? What am I doing? What is the actual point of this? If like everything happens for a reason, you're just like, what is the reason?
Yeah.
And being able to share that context with people, I think not only gives me the opportunity to heal that piece, but other people to see who might be in a similar place in their own journey, that like, okay, it might not work out the way I think it's going to, but something will happen and something will fall together, and that's the path.
Well, it's so interesting too, because that phrase, like everything happens for a reason, I believe is somewhat in our power. Like we always think it's like some universal power that's saying, this is happening to you because, but it's
Mm-hmm.
we make things mean. Because the experience was the same when it happened and when you reflected upon it, but the meanings can change, right? So we have this meaning that happens when we're in it and we're kind of stuck or feeling frustrated by it or whatever. And then there's that post-processing, if you will. What was it? Diane said something really interesting. She was one of the other authors, and she was on our panel at the festival and said something about life happens in the present, but the reflection happens, or the past is reflected upon later, or something like that. But it was a great quote. But it feels like that happens for a reason, is like, well, we might not realize that until much later. And I feel like this process helps people do that. And then we get to choose.
Exactly. And it also gives us the opportunity to reflect on it and give it a meaning, give it a reason. So if the only reason for something is to make it mean something in the capacity of, I'm going to write this story and I'm going to help somebody else, or I'm going to write this story so that the weight of it is not only resting on me.
Yeah.
That's the meaning. That's the, that's the bigger reason.
Yeah, it's the both. And I think that's what I love about what happened in our community, is that there was this wonderful sharing, like at the retreat, for example, where we all got together, heard each other's stories, and it's sort of out there as a universal like thing. And then we can all take what we want from each person's story. We all healed a little bit by sharing our stories. So what happened for you on the retreat? What did you love about the retreat piece of this project? I know, right? Like, I miss
like
it.
It was so special.
Yeah.
And being in, like, I had just the cool opportunity to be on the back end of things, supporting the team and doing, like doing some like work, but also being an author and being able to witness everyone stand in their stories and share their stories for the first time. The energy in that room was the most comforting, safe space I think I've ever witnessed organically, because there was no conversation, there wasn't this like, hello, we are all here and we are in a safe space and this is it was just like you walk in and you were enveloped in this like cozy, happy, excited, like space of everybody is figuring it out, and there is no judgment. There is no like, this person is further or like I am behind. And for me, that was something that I really struggled with throughout the process, because being invited to the book, I was like, this is really great, but now I have to prove that I belong here. And all of that energy just completely dissipated when we were able to connect, not just through sharing our stories, but just by being like understanding each other on the level of, we're all choosing to be this vulnerable and this out there for everybody. And like, only we really know what that feels like in this moment. And it was so cool. It was so great.
That's so perfect too, because I think a lot of the women went through a very similar mindset, especially in the beginning of, I don't belong here, or my story's not good enough, or what am I going to write about, or wow, my story isn't really that impactful, nobody cares, or whatever might have gone through their heads. And I think coming into that room and knowing that we had all finished our stories and gone through the very similar struggle and intention, really, to go through this process, like you said, to be vulnerable, we came in with this equal footing and equal grounding of, okay, I get you, I see you, even though we hadn't even all met each other yet. And you've also been photographed, which a lot of people struggle with, being photographed, which I love giving to the authors as part of the project, is this wonderful photo session. And you, by the way, were freaking amazing in front of the camera. I loved your confidence. And it's so funny where we can actually have that time to explore where we're confident and where we're not so confident. And why? Like, why am I okay here, but not okay here?
And I think why, and I think that, first of all, I think that the credit to how comfortable I was and how much fun I was able to have on the photo shoot goes to you.
Thank you.
because that was the space that you created, and you gave and you can tell when you look at everybody's pictures that they did not feel like, oh, I have to smile for a headshot.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it was just, everybody had such a level of joy and confidence, and like it almost just felt like everybody had that,
Yeah.
like every picture kind of felt like they were exhaling, of
Mm,
like, I'm safe here. I can take up this space. I can be who I want to be. I can embrace where my body is on the journey. I can embrace where, you know, I am on this journey. Like I can burst into tears on this journey if I want to. And like that container is just so magical. And I have like an aside from the festival, but I'm gonna wait until we get there in the conversation. But I'm like so excited to like.
sure. Well, we can, move forward. So obviously we had online online gatherings where we got to meet each other, talk about our stories. You had one-on-ones either with myself or with World Changers Media, being Bryna or you. I mean, maybe some people even talked with you about the technique and all the things. And we learned about how to structure our stories, and we did all that. Then we got to go on this beautiful retreat and have your photo shoot. And then, we did these author interviews, which I loved because, again, we were doing something like this where I got to get to know you guys even on another level of what the experience was like. But then, then we got to do this really fun piece. But we got to see our book, our collection of stories, right? This community we had formed rise ourselves like this little ball of fun and joy and stories and inspiration to a Wall Street Journal best-selling book. Like, how exciting is that?
I could still cry.
I know. And
I might. Who knows? It's fine. Um, no promises. When I tell you like that piece of it, I didn't really understand how much it was going to mean to me personally. And I think that anybody who has the courage to write a book and publish it is phenomenal. And I think that for us, we took that courage one step further by saying, I'm not just going to write the story, but I'm going to commit to this track where thousands of people are going to read my story. It's not going to be hidden in some dark corner of the internet for someone to trip over at some point.
Right.
Like we all made the choice to stand in that story and stand in that piece of the dream. For me, like I've wanted to be a writer since I was since before I could write.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was just always who I wanted to be. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be a bestseller. I would write it in my journals. I would write the affirmations. So at the beginning of our journey, I started documenting myself saying, I'm a best-selling author.
Yeah.
And it was redundant, obviously, but by the end of it, so it was through like getting the offer to be on the project, signing the contract, writing my first draft, getting my photos done, working with my editor, getting the email when my editor said that this is complete, going on the retreat, and then seeing the final draft like in form and finding out which chapter was mine.
Yeah.
That was really special. And then going through and holding the book for the first time, and then holding up the newspaper that said like Wall Street Journal bestseller. Like it was crazy.
Oh, I think there's something about this acknowledgement that comes. Like you put in all this work, and a lot of times there isn't acknowledgement. We don't feel the seen part of the work we might put in, whether you're a mother, a pet owner, like you work really hard at your job, you have a beautiful lawn, whatever it is, like people are coming around going, oh, you're so amazing. not that you absolutely have to have that, like, obviously, you want that to come from within yourself of this personal satisfaction, but there's something pretty cool about that kind of being seen. Now, obviously, I don't know if it's obvious for you, but a lot of the women I've interviewed are like, "Oh, I don't, that vulnerability, I'm just not, I can't, I'm not ready to go there," and things like that. And there's a lot of fear about being seen on all levels, like sharing a personal story and my coworkers seeing it, a personal story and my family hearing it. Like,
Mm.
that's a real fear for a lot of people, and they want to keep those things either separate or hidden. What do you say to that? What came up for you around that?
Yeah. So my story weaved in a lot of the trauma that I experienced prior to getting divorced.
Mm,
And the way I wanted to tell the story was like helping people see the context of why certain things were important to me or why certain things were difficult for me. So in healing my own self and working through PTSD, and working through refinding my identity after the relationship, certain things were really difficult for me. And I used an example in my chapter of not knowing how I liked to drink my coffee. Like I didn't know what I wanted to put in my coffee because all I could hear was the expectation of what does a healthy person put in their coffee? What does a perfect person put in their coffee? So it was like this whole thing. And I remember writing about it and being like, wow, this is dumb. And just being like, people are gonna think I am a nut for like something that silly, but it meant a lot. And so the reason why I bring that up is because the close people in my life who didn't know every piece of that story reached out to me and they were like, I remember how lost you seemed and I didn't understand it. And I'm really glad that I can understand that now. So I think that when people are thinking about writing their chapters, telling their stories, joining this project, knowing that reclaiming your story gives you the opportunity to lead conversations about it.
mm,
And it's not and it's no longer, people assuming things about you or assuming that they understand what you're going through or, you know, just not acknowledging something in your life, in your personality, something that you're working through, things like that. But in telling your story, you're also reclaiming a narrative so that when people can approach you about your chapter, about whatever happened, you have that leg to stand on, to be honest.
yeah.
Because like I felt so much shame about what happened for so long. And then all of a sudden, when I started telling my story, the looks of pity started to shift to empathy and understanding and like just a level of like human connection.
Yeah, I almost feel like celebration, like somebody can
Yes.
celebrate what you've been going through and say, "Go girl," like, or "Good job," if you're actually through something already too, and they see that other side, or they see that you've acknowledged like, "Yes, and I still have more work to do," right? And I think that gives people this permission to love you more deeply without having to fix you, right? Like, because if we're
Mhm.
assuming that someone needs something or that they're a hot mess or they can't do it themselves, which most people can do it themselves. There's some people that need help and they'll reach out if they need to. But we
Mhm.
assume that people need us to do something, which actually makes us pull away, I think. Like, it often, like, if you don't know what to do for somebody, I'm just gonna not do anything and pull away. So there's a deeper
Yes.
connection that can happen when we're willing to open ourselves. It
Mhm.
allows that door to be there for someone to walk through it and say, "Hey, that's awesome. And I know you've got this, and I'm going to salute you." So I love how you're saying that. So
Mhm.
another vulnerable piece was obviously standing on the stage at the festival. So this is what is big for me. The whole Born to Rise mission is to help women claim their stories in that way, to actually stand physically in them say it out loud with the confidence and the trust, not always confidence, but the trust that it's all going to be okay and that I can grow and rise from this. What did that feel
Mhm.
like for you? I think that was one of your first talks, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
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 Up until then, I had been talking to myself. I loved it. I loved the festival. I loved, first of all, showing up. I was so nervous, very disheveled because I had like a very early, it was just a very chaotic weekend. And I showed up and I was a little nervous, very out of body, very like, this is the thing that's happening right now. And I don't, oh my goodness, like, what did I sign up for? And I got to walk into the theater and see everybody in the same place for the first time since um, the author retreat.
Uh,
And I got to just show up and be like, I don't know. I need a second, and have 20 women look at me and be like, okay,
you've got,
take what you need. What can I do for you?
yeah,
Like, in the most loving, supportive, and held way that I could even imagine.
yeah,
And that to me was like everything in that moment. So when I was able to step on the stage and tell a story in a way that felt good to me, even though it wasn't the same way that the other speakers chose to tell their stories, because they have different experience with public speaking. They were speaking to topics that they were more comfortable with, or like, they had note cards, they had this. I chose to, read from my phone, but also tell the story, take the pauses, let people laugh. I was so grateful that people laughed at my jokes. That was the most nerve-wracking thing. I was like, I
yeah,
just, I really hope they think it's funny, because
yeah.
I think it's funny. So, um, but being on the stage was just a different way to receive. For me, honestly, it was a different way to receive validation that my voice mattered, that my story mattered, and also that I wasn't alone.
Yeah, yeah,
So I might have been on the stage by myself, but everyone in the audience saw me
yeah.
in that moment and in that capacity of, yeah.
And it's so interesting because obviously you've got 22 authors with different lives, different abilities to be completely engaged in the whole 8 months of all the things we did. Some missed a lot, some were totally there most of the time, some came and went. But there was something about that day where like one of the authors who had a, she's a very busy woman, had a lot of trouble getting to some of the meetings and the retreat and everything, but literally was picked up out on the ocean from a race that she was in on a boat, zoomed in and drove to Providence to be there. And even though she hadn't been as involved with some of the other women, there was like an instant love fest with all of us, no matter what level we had been involved, because we all knew the process that we had gone through, right? No
Mhm.
matter what it was, as far as the whole gathering piece, there was still that piece that we knew someone had gone through to uncover, unravel, untangle, process, and shift their stories. So it was kind of such a cool thing to walk into that auditorium as a group and go, I've never met you. I've barely seen your face in the line, but I've got you and I get what you've gone through.
Yes.
So cool. Um, but you were phenomenal on stage. You were, your story's great. What's happening since then? What's happened for you since the project?
Well, life goes on, and it presents you with challenges and choices, um, to either rise or to become a hermit and slink back. And I think that for me, like, I'm very like spiritual in the way that I believe the universe either sends me billboards or, feathers. And the universe has sent many a billboard for me to run face first into over the last couple of months. So I was able to do a book signing at my local Barnes and Noble, which was so special because I used to work there. But also, you know, it was a really cool opportunity to be held as an author in a different capacity. Like people bought the book.
Yeah.
People I didn't know. I'm not gonna lie, like my book signing was 90% like an extended family reunion.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, like people walked into Barnes and Noble and they were like, what
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah.
Like it was a full it was so cool to walk into that store, a store that I've been in 100 times, and to see my book, our book on a table right in the front.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I am working on my own book
Yeah.
that will come out next year, which I'm so excited about. And writing my chapter in Born to Rise helped me find my voice for what I'm working on now. And it helped me find confidence in that voice,
Yeah.
because I was always nervous about the way I present my stories, because I have a different sense of humor. I have a different approach to, you know, the way I deal with like the weird crap that's happened in my life. And I'm not for everybody. And I think that embracing the fact that the chapter was well received and the writing style is received, like I'm never going to pretend to be for everybody, but you know what, like if this is, you know, something that people connect to, I'm so excited about that. And so writing the chapter has opened up that avenue of creativity. So I started a blog that is like a paid platform and things like that. So I've been gathering like a readership there and building in that capacity. But in a professional capacity, the women of Born to Rise are badass.
Yeah.
Like they're just amazing human beings. And I feel like I have leveled myself up just by getting to know them,
Yeah.
and the collaborations that are coming out of Born to Rise are so cool. So I have been introduced to a really potent networking group through one of the women, and we went and we hung out and we sold books at a table a couple of weeks ago. You know, you and I have started working together, and I'm looking forward to just like continuing that relationship with all of the women who were in the first iteration of Born to Rise. And I'm so excited to like continue this cute little sorority of writers that we're creating in the next iteration, and being a mentor and like, you know, like helping hold space for Born to Rise Awakening, and then maybe whatever is next. Like you can't get rid of me. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're all going to end up on a retreat again somewhere. All of us, all the different authors from the different books, we're going to come together. It'll be so much fun. I know. Well, that would be
so
magical.
magical.
Well, you're so dynamic. You're so lovely. I just, I'm honored that you said yes to the project, and I'm honored that all the women said yes to the project, and all the women that are saying yes to the next one, because it is a vulnerable experience. It can be really scary, and you can see all the beauty that comes from opening ourselves up to that kind of possibility for shifting, rising, growing, and being in community with other women who are doing the same thing. So thank you so much. Love you from the bottom of my heart. And
Love you too.
Born to Rise. All right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.